Yeah, so welcome to the third episode of Man Bites Dogma, where we just kind of shoot the shit, talk about the things that appeal to us to talk about in terms of things that may be less than savory dinner conversations with your girlfriend's parents.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, there's no story there.
Oh, okay. Damn. I was getting excited.
It's just one of those things, like, you know, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about how much money you make, all that shit.
Anything that matters. Don't talk about things that matter.
Don't talk about things that matter with new people in your life. That's what I've heard. Slowly, I'm realizing that the people that we want to surround ourselves with enjoy talking about those things because they enjoy having, even if they don't agree with you on everything, they enjoy having those discussions.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here.
Exactly.
So, I know we have some ideas of what we want to talk about for this episode, but you know, we can also just get into it slowly. We, you know, I haven't seen you in a few days.
Yeah. I'm still not fully seeing you. This is
yeah. So I know that people who are watching this, they see us looking at each other, but we actually have these giant dildo mics in our face. And so it's like right in my line of sight.
Yeah. I get like one eye.
See an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, right eye.
It's very like noir. I'm just like getting this nice little
slit.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so that's my intro.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. So yeah, I mean for those of you who have been paying attention and watching, I personally, I know I reached out to you a couple days ago when it first dropped, but new footage in regards to the George Floyd situation emerged.
Right. The Daily Mail got access to one of the body cam footage angles, I guess, of one of the, I guess, the first officer on the scene with George Floyd. And it's still, you know, it doesn't change much, but it does provide a new context to add into the bigger story. And since we talked about that, we didn't talk about the incident necessarily, but we talked from the incident, I guess. The movements,
all of
the protests that are happening
from that incident is for episode 1. So
yeah, so we wanted to kind of address any new information that came to light because that was our first episode.
Exactly. So, I mean, I know I have my own thoughts about it, but in the interest of not talking too much, no, I'm kidding. I'm not going to let it go.
Now, let me be 100% honest. This is something that you brought to me over the phone a few days ago, and you wanted to have an open discussion about it because from your perspective, you thought it brought some information to light that wasn't covered or wasn't even known, at least not publicly. Since that footage was private. So I'm going to give you the floor for that because, well, I mean, if you want to explain what's in the video,
sure.
I don't think we're going to put the video up on this because it's just not what we do.
Right.
But I encourage everyone to go watch it just to see another perspective of the. I'm not saying you should watch it because it's enjoyable or anything. It's definitely not. It's very sad. It's still very tragic, but it gives you a few more minutes of before the normal videos that we've seen. And it gives you a different perspective as well because you're literally looking at it from the angle of an officer on the scene. So anyway, I now I'm the one talking too much. So,
but yeah, so I mean, I guess I can launch into like the key details I feel like that are revealed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to walk through it.
Yeah.
Talk about what about the video, the new video, I guess opened you up to other possibilities or other ideas.
Okay.
It's not the best way to say that, but
we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So the thing that I feel like is the most substantial change in my perspective after having watched the body cam footage is that it for me it makes it very difficult, if not practically impossible, to prove malicious intent on behalf of the officers that were on scene. Like, that doesn't change that a man was killed. That doesn't change that there was probably a way that could have been prevented, for sure. But to me, it's one of those things where if you watch the interactions that these officers had with George Floyd, before he was put on the ground. At just about every point, they were trying to work with him. They were trying to de-escalate as much as possible. They were working with him. They were reassuring him, like literally from the beginning, he's worried about getting shot. And the officer is like, I'm not going to shoot you. Just, just follow my directions. Just step out of the car.
Can I pause you there for
Go
a
ahead.
moment? The opening of the video is the cop approaching the car with his gun drawn.
Mm-hmm.
So putting myself in the position of George Floyd in that instance,
I get you.
I don't feel very safe I feel like it's justified to be afraid.
Yes.
Like, oh, this person could kill me right now. And so I just want to put that out there.
No, I get that.
They weren't starting with a de-escalation tactic.
No. But there's a lot of. I'm not in the head of that officer, so there could have been a couple of reasons as to why he felt the need to approach the car in that way. But to your point,
just
yes,
saying,
yes, no. There's justification
Right.
to be afraid for your life, but after that
As George Floyd.
exchange, yeah, after that exchange, where did the gun go?
Oh, it went in. Mm-hmm.
Right, he holstered it.
Right.
Because he realized that, like, this is just a scared dude. He's not really a threat to me in this moment. Okay, let's work with this.
Okay.
And so
So from that point on, you're saying that
right,
you believe that they tried their best with the limited resources that they had. It was two people on the scene
two people
first.
on scene initially, and like there was
And it wasn't Chauvin.
right. It wasn't Chauvin. Chauvin was not the first officer on scene.
Hate that I know that name.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, honestly, we shouldn't know either of their names, George Floyd or Derek Chauvin, but
yes,
I'm just
no. I get
That's
you.
how
I
I
get you.
feel.
I get you.
Okay.
So, and then the thing is that there was something that I wasn't given, and how true it is. I have to do some more digging to actually figure it out. But one of the people that was on the scene that I wasn't aware of when the story initially broke was actually George Floyd's ex-girlfriend. She was in the car with him when they first apprehended him. And one of the things, like there's a section of the footage where the officer is having a conversation with her after, like, they've got him in cuffs, and I think it's at the point where he's sitting down on the sidewalk. They actually talk to her because his behavior is a little strange to them. And they're like, is he drunk? Is he on something? And she goes, nah, he's just got something wrong up there. And she does the standard gesture for somebody who is mentally ill or has some sort of mental issue. Right? And that put the rest of what happens in a different context for me. Because what happens after that point is they, obviously they get him up off the ground. They take him to the cruiser to try and put him in the back so they can take him to jail. And at that point, like up until that point, George Floyd is actually pretty calm. Like, he's not freaking out. He's not really yelling. He's not raising his voice. He's being cooperative, and they're just walking with him.
And as far as we know, they're taking him to book him
Right.
because of the initial call that they received.
Right, of him.
The counterfeit
money. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the minute they go to put him in the car, his behavior completely changes to a panic state, like almost on a dime. And his big thing is he doesn't want to get put in the car. And he spouts off a bunch of different things, like he's claustrophobic, he's had COVID, and he doesn't want to be in a contained space, and yada, yada, yada. And like, even with him struggling with them physically and, technically at that point resisting arrest, they're still, while still trying to get him in the car, they're still like, look, they're trying to give as much as they can in that moment, from my perspective, to ease this situation for him. Because they're offering, like, okay, we get that. Can we, I'll roll down the windows for you. We're not going to leave you in the car alone. I'll stay with you. Like, it's fine, but you got to get in the car. Like,
Right.
And at no point do I really hear, even in the, like, and I'm not a psychologist, this is just my opinion, I don't hear hostility in how they're addressing him.
You're talking about from the cops.
Right.
Okay.
I don't hear hostility. Like, I hear people that are trying to calm a man down and get him where they need to get him. Right?
Do you feel in that moment that they were prepared in any way to handle a situation like this with someone who is perhaps experiencing mental instability? Do you feel like they're trying their best, but do you feel like they're actually prepared?
Well, it depends, and see that, I mean, that's going to spin into a bigger conversation of what role are the cops supposed to serve?
That's a big question.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been talking about that for some time now.
Yeah. You can tell I'm pushing a little bit
yeah.
to that direction.
I get you.
Yeah.
What role are they supposed to serve? Because even though if his ex-girlfriend is to be believed, he has some sort of behavioral health issue, right?
Well, he's definitely expressing that physically.
Right.
He's against going into this space. He doesn't want to go. I mean, it is technically resisting arrest.
The thing is, though, you are talking about someone who, at least from the witness account of the person who made the call to the cops, that has also committed a crime.
Right.
And so it's like you're in this situation where, from a humanitarian standpoint, you would want somebody who is, you know, trained with people with behavioral health issues.
Sure.
So that way they can more expertly de-escalate the situation. But the fact still stands that, as per the way that the law is meant to carry out, he still has to get in that car. And so how do you, do
the cops need to be trained in order to handle behavioral health issues as well as being able to handle normal, everyday, someone used a counterfeit 20 and we got to take them in because that's illegal type stuff? Or do we have separate resource officers who are specifically trained to handle these things? And it's almost like, these guys were waiting for paramedics. Is it kind of like one of those situations where you're waiting on someone to come and there might not be as many of them as there are cops because, more resources, more resources go to the cops and less resources would go to the other officers who are more equipped to handle these situations. And then you're waiting on them then because they're not everywhere. And, and that's interesting because they were waiting for paramedics too at this situation.
Yes.
Later on in the story.
The story, yeah. And that's one of those situations where it's like, okay, so what is the main goal? Like, obviously we can have a hierarchy of goals, but what is the most important thing on that list in that scenario? Are you concerned about the comfort and safety of the individual who has reportedly committed a crime? Are you concerned about public safety? Right? Because even though, and I'm not trying to stigmatize people with behavioral health problems, but even though you are talking about a man with likely, at least, and I'm not an expert in this, his behavior does suggest, in my experience with people with behavioral health issues, that he probably does have some sort of behavioral health issue, or did have some behavioral health issue. But you are still talking about a grown man. You are still talking about somebody who is strong enough to, while handcuffed, prevent himself from being put in a car by two officers.
Right, yeah.
And so
he's definitely resisting.
Right. And you're also talking about a man, and I know that people have their own opinions about whether or not this plays a factor. You're talking about a man with a bunch of priors in terms of crimes, in terms of also violent crimes. So, and his behavioral health conditions can play into that, sure, but how do you balance out? Like, that's, to me, like, a big part of this question is how do you balance out those priorities?
This video has basically given us a insight into the perspective of the people we, as a society, probably didn't give much credence to in terms of their perspective, or the cops on the scene, because, we saw a murder happen in the final acts of this situation. That's how we perceived it in the public eye. In this country, at least, in the world, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So this new video, this angle, the body cam footage, has basically forced us to sit and be along for the ride in the head of, or at least the perspective of, the first responding officer.
Yep.
And so from that perspective, it leads you to not only see and hear what they're doing, but also think almost kind of from their perspective. And that's what you're saying. It's like, okay, you have a gentleman here who has these priors. We got to take that into account as an officer. I'm not speaking as a public. Like, the person on scene, the officers have difficult jobs. They want to make sure that they have as much information as they can have on someone that they're interacting with. So they look that stuff up. They're dealing with him. They're trying to be, I guess, in their way, de-escalating the situation. They're doing what they know how to do. It may not be enough in the grand scheme of things, but in that moment, in that time, they're doing what they can. Okay.
And primarily their job isn't to condemn a man. Their job isn't to assess whether or not he's guilty. That's the judiciary branch, right? That's why we have a court system. Now, whether or not that court system is perfect, we can argue about that all day.
Right. But the ideal...
Their job is to simply remove him from the situation, put him in a secure location, which in this case would be a jail, so that that judiciary process can take place.
Right.
That is their primary job in that moment. Like that's frankly their only job, unless he's posing like an imminent
Immediate
physical threat to everyone else around him or them. Like that's their job. So like they have to, at least in the way things are currently, they have to get him in that car.
They have to take him in.
Right. So how do you do that without
It's a tough. I mean, especially since we know how it ends.
Right.
And so we haven't even brought in the next officer.
Right. Chauvin. So yeah, I mean, Chauvin arrives in the midst of them trying to get him into the car.
Yeah.
And so
They're struggling a little bit.
right from the perspective of Chauvin, because like they even almost they get him fully into one side, and then he pushes his way out the other side. In the video, and so it's like Chauvin's walking in to this scene. He sees a man who is handcuffed but is still giving two officers trouble.
Right. And
physically.
Chauvin's perspective is also, I mean, not only that, but he's also a ranking member on the
Right.
situation. These guys are newer to the force, right? Okay. So he
Right.
has some authority,
Yes,
essentially.
he does.
Or at least he feels like he does.
And like what I find is interesting, and it's there's so many interesting little pieces in this video footage that like I could pick up on and point out, but like, and in no way am I saying that his priors or his behavior or anything like that means that the man deserved to die or should have died.
Nope. Unequivocally,
like-
no.
Yeah.
Definitely not. That is not what you are saying, and that's not what we are saying on
Right.
this podcast at all.
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah,
No one deserves that.
no one deserves that. The optimal scenario, obviously, was him just being able to be put through the process of like being alive, getting to where he needed to get safely. Like that's what I would want. And I
That's
think
the best you
what
could
most-
hope for with this
Right.
current system we have now, which is,
Right.
We can have a bigger discussion about whether it's effective or not and whether it works for the people it needs to work for.
Right.
We're not having the discussion right now. It needs to be had, but in the current system, that was the goal
Right.
of those officers, at least.
That was their job. It's not even their goal. That's their job. That's what they're paid to do.
It's their job.
Right. And so what I find really interesting is about the same time Chauvin shows up on scene, you actually hear George Floyd because he is panicked. Like you can hear
Yes.
like heavy breathing, even though he's not really physically fighting them that hard. Like it's not a hard fight for him, clearly, from what I'm seeing. He's already saying he can't breathe, and I think that's due to panic. If he truly has claustrophobia, people that are claustrophobic do experience difficulty breathing the minute they're afraid of it being in a contained space or are in a contained space. So he already is saying that he can't breathe before he's on the ground. And he legitimately, you can hear him ask them to put him on the ground instead of in the car. Like he literally says it. And this is around the same time.
Does he mean on his front, though, or does he mean sit down?
He said, I'd lay on the ground. He says the phrase, I'll lay on the ground. Just put me on the ground.
Okay.
Like, he'd
I have
rather...
to look at that again.
Yeah. And I mean, you can obviously
yeah.
fact check me on that. but
Please, yeah. Anyone who's listening or watching this, let us know.
I watched it a few times, and that's what I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
I heard, but...
Right. Now, we want to be as accurate as we
Yeah.
can be about this, because this is a very serious situation.
Yeah. And at that point, now what we're talking about is you have somebody who is not cooperating, who is physically resisting, who is doing a pretty good job of it despite the fact that they're handcuffed. And you need to find, from, like, I'm thinking from Chauvin's standpoint, senior officer on scene, he has to gain control of the situation. Like, that's his perspective, whether that's right or not. Like,
Right.
you're showing up, you need to gain control of the situation. And so, yeah, he puts him on the ground. He puts him in a submission position that we can talk about whether or not that should be standard. But
With the knee on the neck?
yeah, knee
Or knee on the back?
knee and back neck area. I've seen it done 100 times.
No, there's plenty of evidence of that
Right.
being kind of standard operating procedure. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But
Right.
it
happens
is something
all
that
the time.
It is something that cops do.
And very
not
and-
just one cop.
Right.
It's even nationally. It's not even
And
just
I'd be
that
willing
area,
to
you
argue
know?
that statistically most people don't die from it.
Well,
Right.
it would. I don't know for sure, but it would appear so,
Right. So
or it would appear that you're correct. Yeah.
and so, excuse me, I had to take a drink, and that's complicated with the
I know.
mask. Oh my
No, we're
goodness.
trying to be safe.
And so now you have a situation where he's in that hold, and they've already called for paramedics. And
because he's experiencing some health issues,
right?
And they're very aware of this,
right?
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm trying to figure out, because there's not a lot of conversation between the officers, even on this footage. Like, there's some, but not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, one of the initial officers on scene does ask Chauvin, like, "Hey, should we put him on his side?" Just because, and I forget the exact term he uses, but he says something that basically I know implies like a hyper state, like being in a heightened state for too long can cause complications.
Okay.
And he's like, "Should we turn him on his side? Like, is he going to have any problem of this sort?" And Chauvin goes, "The paramedics are on their way. They're coming. They'll handle it. But we need to just keep him here." And was that the right call? Obviously not.
No, definitely not. But did they know?
Did they know?
That's kind of what we're getting at here.
Right.
Is I think you put it really good on our phone conversation a couple days ago. It was like, can you prove that this was a crime on the part of the officers?
Right.
With this new information, basically, because now not only do we see what happens from a new perspective, but we also hear a lot of what they're saying, which gives you great insight into maybe what was going on in their heads. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's the, I forget the name, the attorney who is prosecutor for the case.
Yeah.
I believe originally it was going to be third-degree murder, and I don't know what these terms necessarily mean. I have an idea, but please correct me. We can pull it up,
Yeah,
but third degree. It was
up.
originally third degree, which was a lesser sentence. Obviously, the heightened state of the country after this video was released definitely pushed the prosecutor to go with a higher sentence, I guess, which is second degree. And if we look it up, that would be better than me just sort of saying what I think it means, because that's not going to be accurate. Yeah,
so depending on the state, third degree murder may include felony murder regardless of the underlying felony murder only where the underlying felony is nonviolent, or depraved heart murder, meaning that intent to kill is not an element of the offense of third degree murder in any state which defines it.
And that's what we're getting at. Intent. Was there a crime? Was it a crime
of intent?
Of intent, exactly.
Right.
Did Chauvin specifically intend to kill George Floyd? Now this video, more than ever, has called into question that fact.
Right. I would argue personally that I think it would be damn near impossible to prove without a reasonable doubt that intent was like the intent to kill him
without a reasonable doubt. Exactly.
Right.
That's key.
If I'm sitting on that jury panel, I don't know how to make that call. I can't say for sure, like with all of this evidence in play, I can't say
I can't
that they intended to do that.
And it's a bummer, because I believe that there's a lot that we can do from this situation in terms of our society to reform how we do these things. There's a lot of conversations to be had. What are you looking at?
I'm looking up second degree murder.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
There's a huge conversation that needs to be had. There's huge changes that need to be made in terms of how we police and how we deal with situations like this. And I think, unfortunately, the conversation has become a little bit simplistic and not helpful in regards to the sloganing and the lack of interest now in this situation. Getting rid of the police, defunding police, all that stuff. Like I'm just waiting for you to get this answer.
I got it. I was letting you finish.
No, go for it.
So second degree murder is any intentional murder with malice, aforethought, but is not premeditated or planned in advance.
Okay. So sure, there might be a case to be made for second degree murder, but is it provable beyond a reasonable doubt?
Not to me. Not with this evidence.
Before?
Possibly.
Possibly. Yeah.
It was already a hard case to win, even with the evidence that we had before. Right? Mm-hmm. But to
a hard case to win on which side?
On second degree murder.
For the prosecution.
For the prosecution, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a hard case to win. Even with the evidence we had before these videos came out.
Right. I'm not 100% up on that stuff.
Right.
But in terms of how hard something is to win, but
Oh, because in order to get a second-degree murder charge, according to that, they need
Oh,
to prove.
I know,
malice.
but you were saying before when it was third degree, it was even hard.
Yeah, but
Or before the evidence. I'm sorry.
yeah,
before the
yeah, yeah.
evidence. Second degree was hard.
Third degree, to me, is still provable.
Right, but...
Because third degree you could make an argument for negligence.
Right. I'm not sure if once you go for second degree, if you can't go for third degree anymore. Because I do believe that there should be some responsibility taken on the side of the officers, especially Derek Chauvin. I would love to have a bigger conversation about that at some point. Like what I know cops
what does that look like?
Well, cops are usually protected from things like this because they're doing their job, and sometimes things happen, and it's like, okay, well, but then you're just allowing this to happen at some point. Then, like, yeah, sure, I'm sure
it's
there's
called qualified immunity.
I believe so, and that just means that you're kind of incentivizing this behavior in a sense by like not saying that like you're punishable or like you could be punished for bad behavior, because you're not looking into a case. You don't know if it's bad behavior or legitimately an accident or whatever.
Because to be completely fair, Chauvin has complaints too.
Chauvin
has just like George Floyd had a rap sheet. Chauvin in his own right had a rap sheet.
Yeah, but one's dead,
right?
And can't live anymore and can't
and so
go
I'm
after
saying,
a better life.
I think there is a reasonable case to be made for negligence. Like Chauvin probably acted and seems to have a history of acting somewhat brazenly in the line of duty. That is not the same thing as wanting to kill a man or intending to kill a man,
which is what they're going after right now,
right?
As far as we know, right? Yeah, it's you know what? It's a shitty situation.
Yeah,
it's a tragic situation. The video did not change how I felt about the situation.
The event, yeah,
the event itself.
Yeah,
it called into question the intent. That's pretty much what it's done. And we wanted to make sure that we talked about it. Because I know you follow a lot of news, and I do too, to a degree. But personally, I have not seen, like, the video was released and it made like a blip, like in a headline or something, but it didn't really add to the conversation,
right,
for what we should be doing with police and specifically this situation. George Floyd was a huge case.
Right.
It is a huge case. I'm sorry. It is. It's very huge, and it's very important, and rightly so. But you would think something like this, new evidence, essentially, that's more for the public to see, would generate more conversations like this that we're having. And I haven't seen it, at least not in the public, or at least not in the mainstream. And I don't know if you've seen a different perspective, but
not in mainstream media. I've seen more of it online. For sure.
Like the alternative media stuff.
Alternative media definitely is talking about it.
I've seen a little bit of it.
But mainstream media, I haven't seen much.
I literally just a blip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which was surprising to me because it's very important. I know that they're also, well, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's listening, or you, if you know, Alec, the other two officers who were on the scene are also being prosecuted.
I believe so, yes. And I think it's very hard to prosecute them at this point.
Well, I don't know if they're going for third degree with them or not, but it's a very shitty situation.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't know about it in terms of like it didn't happen.
Right,
I wish it didn't happen is what I'm
right.
saying.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't know these people's names because
this didn't need to go down this way.
It didn't need to go down this way. But again, it's an important event because it's forcing people to have conversations that are hard, and hopefully we can enact some really positive change in the way we police. And hopefully beyond that too, because it's not just the police. There's so many issues with, like, this guy, George Floyd, had prior, as you said. He had maybe a history of a mental instability. That was never really properly addressed. Probably, I don't know the story, but like a lot of people like that.
Oh yeah,
they just go through life without any help.
Behavioral health is a really big issue in, like, for instance, Baltimore. Like the correlation between criminality and behavioral health problems, and poverty for that matter, is undeniable. Yeah,
you're in a vicious circle there, and you're not getting any help or aid, or even resources to be better. It's just, I don't know. It's just a very shitty situation. I'm very sorry that it happened. but hopefully some good can come out of it at the very least. Hopefully his death is not in vain.
Yeah, the thing that this is a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, go for it.
But the reality is after I watched it, like I think after the second time is when I called you. I watched through it twice before I called you.
Yeah.
I'm actually like, part of me is actually very mad about how this all played out, and it has. I mean, obviously, I'm with you in terms of the situation shouldn't have happened. I would have preferred none of this to go down this way.
Why are you mad?
I'm mad because this is not. It's not like they didn't have this footage. And from what I'm seeing of the video feed that the Daily Mail released, it doesn't even look like it's officially released footage. It's somebody taking a video
of a screen.
Right.
Yeah, they.
So it doesn't even seem like an official release. It seems like a leak.
It is a leak.
Right.
I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
That at least that's what it appears. So you're saying, why wasn't this released earlier?
Right.
Why was this perspective not available to the public to see and to at least the police should have released it, because it makes them. It doesn't make them look good, but it makes them look
better.
Infantile. Yeah, better, a little bit better than what we saw on the other videos.
It's
that
hard
were
to make
released.
monsters of them at this point, because you see them acting as humans in the beginning of this,
right?
And so like that,
you see them attempting,
right? So
that's a very good question. That was my first question to you. I think is like, why was this footage?
And it doesn't even seem like
behind
it was
lock and
intended
key
to be released, even now.
If it's a leak.
Right.
Yeah, so what is basically what are you getting at? Like, what are you asking? What is the purpose of that? Why have they not released this footage?
Yeah.
Who's because
and I'm gonna sound a little tinfoily hat here, but my spidey senses of I feel like I'm being played are tingling. I feel like I'm being played.
Not just you.
Like
everyone being played.
Because this is not the first time like removing just talking about one entity. How many times have we seen the media routinely, the mainstream media routinely cover a scenario while omitting specific details, specific angles, specific aspects of a statement
every day
in order to make it seem a certain way?
Every day.
Right.
Literally you can flip between
Fox and CNN.
Yeah, and you'll get the same story but two different versions of it, and you end up being, if you're susceptible to that sort of thing, you can be mad at a very different aspect of that same story. You could blame someone else, and then you go for the other channel and they're blaming something else, and you're still not getting the full story. You're just getting their take on it.
Right.
You're not getting unfiltered news.
And I find it interesting because, like, you take another case that happened after George Floyd case, the Rayshard Brooks case. The first video feed that I saw was the body cam footage from that event. And what's interesting is that body cam footage makes the situation look very different than what actually happened, because you're looking at a limited view. Because you don't see what the actions that Rayshard Brooks takes after the shuffle from that angle. But then other video that's released after everybody gets upset about it adds more context to where it's kind of like, okay, that's a little bit like, it's another situation where I don't like, it's tragic, but it's also like, it calls into question, did I witness a crime? Am I looking at a crime here?
Like, and when you're saying, did I witness a crime, you're talking about on the part of the officers?
Right.
Yeah.
Is what they did a crime? And when I first saw the body cam footage, it looked like a crime. And then it took the cell phone footage like a week later. Looks less like a crime. And I'm seeing a reversal of the type of footage that I'm seeing, the source of the footage, but the same pattern of initial thing I'm shown looks very much like a crime. The thing I'm shown after the fact
calls into question
whether or not I saw a crime.
Yeah.
And I can't help but feel like that's somewhat by design.
Who has that much pull in the Minneapolis Police Department to say nah, or even above them, I would imagine?
Yeah. It's probably coming from above if it's happening the way that I think it's happening.
Whether it's governor or higher up or someone else who's not even in or people who are not even in part of the elected officials.
Yeah. Because
we don't have any evidence to support who it would be, but it is interesting to think about.
At the very least, I think there is a major case to be made for not releasing that footage to the public being negligent. Because what happened?
worldwide movement of people,
Right.
and you've got a mix of protests, and you got a mix of
And you've got battles with the police to
unsavory-
this day and federal agents to this day. Like the Portland has been going on, what, 60,
Several months
70 some
later.
odd days?
several months
Straight?
later.
Like,
Yeah.
and there's more people that have died in the wake of this thing.
Right.
And that's not even at the hands of police. That's at the hands of each other at this point. There's cases where people who are afraid for their lives just drive an Uber, trying to get through a part of a city, ends up, turning into where there's a group of people that are angry and armed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you now have citizens at odds with each other,
Right.
killing each other.
People are mad.
Like,
People are very upset, and I think the pandemic, being at home, being kind of like forced out of your work. A lot of people don't have jobs right now. A lot of people don't have income. The local and state and federal level of government have not really handled the situation well financially in terms of making sure people are good because they're forced to stay home. So, okay, what do I do for money? Okay, we got you a little bit of things, but we're going to handle it horribly, as well as not handling the virus situation. But we've already talked about that. And then you've got this situation with George Floyd that happened, getting people out in the streets.
but even in conjunction of those two things, you've got public officials talking out of both sides of their mouth, because on one hand, the virus is something to be taken seriously, but on the other hand, they welcome protests.
Oh, no, I understand that. And, yeah. I guess what I was getting at is people have a lot of energy right now.
Yeah.
And especially the days leading after, or after the George Floyd murder happened. People had a lot of energy, and a lot more people had more energy to even keep going. And, like what we said in terms of the media and certain ways that stories are portrayed, some places or some outlets pushed a narrative harder than others, which directs anger. Especially if there's a lot of energy, it's a powder keg. Like you just aim it, and so a lot of these people who are angry, they've been aimed, and now they're going along their path. And
honestly, I feel like this footage wouldn't have been, if it is a leak, this footage wouldn't have been dropped until pretty much after the case. Because what my personal opinion is, what I think, and it's still going to happen, it's just going to happen slightly differently, is what we're going to see here is because the case right now is a second-degree murder case. They're going to lose that case. I can almost guarantee they're going to lose that case at this point. And that's going to set people off again. That's going to be nuts,
because people are going to feel like they didn't get justice.
And you know what? They're going to be told that they didn't get justice.
Well, yeah.
It's going to be spun that way.
They're going to hear what... Exactly. No, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No. I'm not saying anything. I was just like, I think you put it in much better words than I was. Yeah.
And so we're going to do this dance all over again.
Yeah, people are going to be very mad because no one's responsible now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, we saw someone do this. And the prosecution was like, hey, we tried to fight for you.
Right.
And it's like they made a huge misstep because I would imagine they had access to the body cam footage.
Yep. Somebody had to know.
Like, why
There's
would
no
you...
way you wouldn't know that. That has to be submitted into evidence.
My thing is, why would you go after a charge that you are very unlikely to get? And I think your answer to that was, well, look at the public outcry. Mm-hmm. These are elected officials.
It's a political move.
It's a political move.
They have to.
They feel like they have to. Mm-hmm. Because if they don't do it, they're going to suffer. They're going to suffer at the polls or whatever it is. And I'm like, that's a shit system.
And I know that this case is going to take some time to prosecute. So what will likely happen, I'm banking on it. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll eat crow. But like, I'm banking on it. What's probably going to happen is this case is not going to come to a verdict before our election cycle is over. Mm. So they'll already have the support they need. They'll already have the support they need. They'll already have the backing because they did everything that the public outcry wanted them to do. And then they're going to fail, but it's too late. It's not going to hurt their polling because they're not going to be up for re-election for some time. And people have short memories.
The incentives are in the wrong place.
Yeah.
The incentives for these politicians is in the wrong place. They have no incentive to actually serve to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Because they are serving the will of the people, but
I guess
they're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're a better, like, especially in that position, what your odds are in certain scenarios to get a good outcome for what you want, to get
the
your
most
W.
optimal outcome
Yeah.
for the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. But they want to win, not just in the sense of the case, but they want to win in terms of their career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just prosecution in this case. That's every politician.
Yeah. It's the same. I mean, like,
These guys are so out of touch, man.
I mean, like you have instances like, you have like New York. Like to talk about this in another way, you have New York where it's like, they're the epicenter for cases of COVID, right? And they're like, this needs to be taken very seriously. The rhetoric about COVID is that it needs to be taken more seriously and it's not being handled correctly. And there's a lot of points in which I agree with them, but also like you have some control over that. So that's kind of your fault. But well,
they've done a good job since.
But at the same time, no politician would dare tell people that it's unsafe to protest. No one would dare do that.
I mean, even health officials were saying that.
Right. Oh, yeah, go ahead and protest, even though it kind of flies in the face of everything we say about how unsafe other things are.
It's all, well, that goes back to what we were saying about what wins you in your career, or what wins for you in your career.
And I'm particularly mad at myself. I'm mad at myself mostly from this. And it's because I forgot a rule that
Don't be mad at yourself, man. Be mad at the people who did this.
No, I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at myself for this specific reason because I haven't said it on the podcast, but I know you've heard me say it at least once. Is one of the many sayings that I have about my personal philosophy on dealing with people, situations, whatever, is I try to pay more attention to what they're not saying than what they are saying. I try to read situations that way.
And now why do you do that?
And I got swept up in this one. And I wasn't paying attention to what they weren't showing me.
Extremely compelling.
I know. But I broke my own rule.
I know.
And that's why I'm mad.
Now, why do you have that rule?
I have that rule I usually use it in an interpersonal sense, but I think it applies more broadly. For me, I think that in general, in my experiences, what people aren't saying to you is often more telling about who they are than what they are saying. And I'm struggling to find a specific example of when that happens, but essentially, like, if I ask you to tell me about, one of your favorite childhood memories, right? Or I ask you to tell me about something that traumatic that happened to you. If I know that something traumatic happened to you. There are definite details where if you're paying close enough attention, most people are trying to be good listeners, so they're along for the ride. They're going to hang on your word, right? If they're listening well. I try to go one step further in that interaction or in that listening and pay close attention to the details that you don't give me. Because there's definitely, like, you can put, like, if you're thinking about it on that level, the story that you tell me will have details, but I know just of how things play out. There's other aspects of this situation, and the question becomes, are you leaving those details out because you don't know them, or are you leaving those details out because it pushes the story in a specific tone or a specific perspective, or naturally leads you to a certain conclusion? Right? And people do this subconsciously. I'm not trying to say everybody here is like some malicious actor. Like, everybody kind of does this subconsciously because whenever we tell stories, we try to put ourselves in the role of hero because duh. And so we will craft stories, we will craft any sort of thing to put ourselves in a positive light, even without trying to. And so because I know that people have that tendency, and because I know that when somebody knows how to wield that effectively, and this, as I've mentioned before, goes back to when I was part of a cult, like...
That's going to be an episode someday, man. I know. You keep dropping these hints and people are like, cult? What? Cult?
Right.
Did you say cult or did you say cull?
But, like, that ability to weave a story in that way, because the key there, and the media does it all the time, it's not about lying. It's about omitting information. Because a lie can be proven. Omitting information, you can't even necessarily prove the intent of doing that. You can't even prove that somebody meant to do that.
It's so muddy.
Right.
It's
It's
terribly
super muddy.
Yeah.
And so I tend to, when I'm dealing with a person for the first time, or and especially in social situations, it's something I enjoy doing when I'm meeting new people.
Oh, I know.
Is people talk amongst each other, and I pay very close attention to what they don't say about anything that they're talking about.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Just interacting with new people. Yeah. And the same thing goes for
broader things, like
big news stories.
Normally, when I see a news story, I have enough personal composure, or whatever you want to call it, to be able to analyze it, step back, and go, okay, what did they not show me? What are they not telling me?
Yeah.
What did they leave out?
Right.
Because there's this detail definitely exists. They didn't tell it to me.
That's the interesting thing about the George Floyd case, is that we do have most of what was in that what within the video we're talking about, the new video that was released. We do have most of that from the original videos and from the original context. So it's almost like it's not like you didn't follow your rules so much as you didn't feel like it was necessary to dig deeper, because you saw a lot. Like it was like it's a long video. Like you're not omitting really anything except for enough that you maybe forgot to, like, oh, there was something leading up to this moment.
Right.
You just see this dude, and it's like, that's not necessary. What he's doing, that's not necessary.
Right.
And knowing that hindsight is 2020, we know that's not necessary.
Right.
But now with this video, you get a glimpse as to why they might have done that, and we know it wasn't the right way to go about it. But now it's less intentional.
I don't think they meant to do it. That's where I'm at.
That's where you're at.
Like, and that matters. That matters a lot.
It matters depending on what definitely for what they're going for in court, it matters.
I'm not
that's
saying
what
that
they're
absolves them of what happened, but I am saying that whether or not they meant to do it, whether or not they were doing their jobs intentionally poorly, matters.
Unfortunately, the prosecution has put themselves in a corner now where, yes, it matters whether intention was part of it or not. But now we're not gonna get justice, because if they can't go for the third degree, if they've already like upped it to second, I don't know how it works, but if they can't go back for whatever reason,
even if they could, that means that we're dragging this out for at least a year at this point. If it's expedited,
like it's
a whole separate case that they have to make now.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds like that's how it would work. And please correct us if we're wrong, but like,
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, but it's just negligence on the part of the prosecution. Like, people have to be held accountable for this murder.
But is it?
Okay, I say murder, but that's intent.
No. What I'm saying is it negligent?
From the prosecution?
See, I don't have enough data to prove that they're doing this negligently. I don't have enough data
started with second degree
doing it on purpose.
They started with second degree, and then I feel like public pressure made them go to they started with third degree, and public pressure made them go to second. That's how I see it. I don't know. I don't have the body cam footage of the prosecution making that decision.
Right. But the body cam footage was available, and if you're doing your job or in earnest as a prosecutor, you would get your hands on that footage. You would see it. You would know what kind of case you can make.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So I don't think it's negligent.
It's negligent that they took it to second degree when they should have left it at third?
What I'm saying is that they had enough information available to them to where, just like I'm saying, like with the officers, this kind of muddies intent, whether or not they intentionally killed George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that the reverse is that before, if they didn't have access to this footage, yes, I would say that it's negligent. The chances of them not having access to this footage is very slim.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Once they have access to it, it's not negligent. They intentionally did that. They knew what they were doing. They knew they put up a case that they couldn't win.
Okay, semantics. Negligence implies that they messed up and they didn't realize.
Right.
Okay. I'm saying they're intentionally negligent.
Fair enough.
Which I don't know if is that an oxymoron or
a little
a word
bit,
that.
But sure.
It's like willful, what's a better word then?
Like, no. I think that it's akin to willful ignorance.
But that's what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you have the evidence that you're probably not going to get your second degree on your side. But you push for it anyway because of potentially public pressure, and I think that's the one. Because public pressure has done a lot of things, but people have not changed their ways.
Right.
But making you look good is a different story, and I think that's what's going on. I think we have enough evidence to suggest that that's possibly where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I mean. I think that's intentional negligence.
Mm-hmm.
You're not prosecuting the case fairly. You're prosecuting the case to make you look good.
Which will only cause more destruction, more turmoil, and likely more death. That's...
Exactly.
And, like, how do we prosecute them for that?
You
Because
can't.
somebody
No,
should
they're-
be responsible for that.
Talk
in
about
my
immunity.
opinion.
These guys are judges.
I don't think that's a judge's fault.
No. I'm just saying these guys are all immune.
Yeah.
Like, I know judges definitely are immune, but
Yes, it's very hard to prosecute a judge.
yeah. I found out I don't even know if this is true. I heard yesterday the judge for the Trayvon Martin case was married to the lawyer of Zimmerman and did not recuse herself.
That's fun.
I don't know. I haven't verified this, so I don't know. But we don't need to do it right now.
I don't need to, I will look it up.
But
though.
like judges get carte blanche apparently to kind of do whatever they want to do because they qualify for that sort of immunity too.
Right.
Anyway, the system is corrupt on many levels.
Yes. And this is why I
many
think it's
areas.
eternally important. Like, everybody's talking about it right now, or will be talking about it until the election actually happens. Like,
Yeah.
we keep talking about choosing between two bad choices. And this is precisely why that narrative, like, this, and
So sad.
this kind of spirals into a completely different subject of the lies that we believe, right? The lies that we are told enough times to believe them. And for me, the biggest one that I hear every election year, because everybody loves to berate me for my stance on it, my stance is simply, until you give me a good choice, I'm not voting for anybody.
Yeah, that you can't say that, dude.
I know I can't say, I just said it,
You
but
just got you're about to get canceled.
I know. But,
Voting
like,
is a sacred right, but it doesn't count. Your vote doesn't matter, but you should exercise it.
especially not in Maryland.
I would say local elections,
Sure.
like local elections that count.
You definitely have more control over
but
that.
then you're saying no, like if you haven't given me a good choice, I'm not going to vote. That's
Right.
That's where you're coming
Yeah,
from.
no, that's where I'm coming
That's
from.
your
and I
cult talking to you.
think, okay, yeah. Sure, that's my... because,
More on that later in another episode.
because no, I really believe that, like, that is part of your duty as an American, is to not to me, it's part of, to hearken to our second episode, part of American values of, like, consent of the governed is not to sit there and allow your government to give you two bad choices.
Yeah, and this is very consistent. It's not just this year.
Yeah.
This has been like, I mean, you could argue that in some cases, like, it depends on who you are and what you believe, but like in
Right.
some cases you've had to, oh yeah, obviously I'm going to vote for, let's say, Obama or something. But two choices?
Yeah, why do we only
What?
get two, first of all?
What, in a general? And I know that, you got the Green Party and all that, but like, no one gives them time to talk. No one puts them on the debate stage. It's always just two guys. It's like they mastercrafted this whole thing where it's like, you got these two choices. And the best part is, Democrats and Republicans are exactly the same,
They're not different at all.
except for when it comes to social issues.
Yeah.
When it comes to like financial stuff, oh, they're happy to do the same exact things.
They're happy
Pelosi
to warmonger. They're
and
happy to...
Reed,
Yeah.
they're the same person, except for when it comes to the social stuff, which is not unimportant,
Unimportant,
but man, this is not, I don't know if I like this topic just because it's just, so you don't vote because you haven't gotten it.
I vote when it matters.
You
to
vote
me.
when you feel like you have a choice to make.
Yes.
When it matters
Yes.
to you. You don't vote in, like, let's say the upcoming election. I'm not speaking for you, but let's say you're like, I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of Biden. I'm not going to vote for either of these fools, and I'm not going to vote for the Green Party guy. I'm not going to vote for Kanye. I mean, you might vote for Kanye. I don't know, but
No, I would not. That's also irresponsible.
yeah, but you're so in that instance. What was I getting at? So you're not voting. Okay, this is what I was getting at. What can we do as the American public, as the citizenry of the United States, if we are fed up with that two-party system? If we're like, it's just like this immovable beast that is.
That's
here.
the second lie.
I'm saying it's like it.
I know. But to me, that's the second lie, because that always comes with, like, the when I bring up this conversation of why I don't vote when I think it's just down to bad choices, and how everybody else pushes back on me and saying that that's irresponsible. somehow. Because I'm like, a bad choice is a bad choice. Like, I don't,
It's going to be bad whether I vote or
right.
not. That's what you're getting at, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I view voting, I take voting, like you said it kind of jokingly, it's like your sacred right. I do consider it to be a sacred right. I do, personally. And so for
I just want to
me,
be clear. I was pretending to be the people who attacked you.
I know.
But yes, it is right. Yes.
And because it is a sacred right? That means that when I vote for someone, I have given a portion with this relationship between the populace and the government, the governed and the government. There we go.
Sure.
Got it. There is a relationship where I have power as a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what consent to the government means. I have power. Yeah. When I vote for you, I hand my power to you.
I would like you to represent me in this office.
So on some level, I am now responsible for what you do.
Right. So you're basically in this situation, you're like, well, I'm not going to vote for either of you. I'm not responsible for what you do.
I'm not.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
No, that is.
I mean, I guess I hear what you're saying. You are not responsible because you did not vote for them, because Correct. You didn't find the choice to be advantageous.
And the thing is that everybody has their, like most people, as all of our data shows, are single issue voters in general. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, because they're single issue voters, they get locked into this idea.
This one party.
Of like, I want this one thing to be accomplished, because if it's not accomplished, then I'm responsible for the opposite thing happening.
Right.
And I'm like, but if you're responsible, like, that's my thing, is like, you have to, it doesn't contain itself to that single issue though. If you are voting because you feel it's your responsibility, let's just take an issue, abortion, one way or the other. Either you need to give women abortion rights or you need to not give women abortion rights. Doesn't matter which side of the issue you're on. If you're voting for that issue and you think that it's your responsibility to make sure whatever end you care about gets done, you are already admitting that you're responsible for that happening. Mm-hmm. That's why you're voting. That also means you're responsible for everything else that candidate does.
Right, because it's not just one issue that they're going to obviously oversee.
Right.
No matter what level of government they're in.
I can't be a single issue voter.
They're going to, let's talk about the president. They're going to bring in the next, like if a member of the judiciary, the Supreme Court, leaves or dies, they are responsible for getting another one in there.
Yep.
And they'll pick whoever they damn well please. And as long as they're...
Congress will try to stop them if they don't like them. But
it depends on who's in power in Congress. But and whether they agree with the president in that situation. But it's, what I'm saying is it's not just the one issue. It's everything.
It's everything.
The endless wars. Like, what? It's been 20 years almost since we invaded Iraq, and like, what?
Afghanistan
and Iraq. Thank you.
Yeah.
And like I said, both parties are exactly the same. Even though the Republicans put us there, we didn't get out when Obama came in. In fact,
Obama
we doubled down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't give Trump a lot, but at least he tried to pull people out.
Right.
And the military were like, nah, you don't have power here.
Even though you technically, that is the only role that you have, is to command the military. Nah.
Not this military. Anyway, but yeah,
so
you're voting on several issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're voting for a person. You got to know, like, and I know that's very difficult to do. You got to know who that person is. You got to know, really be able to have an apparatus to know what they're going to do.
Right.
And part of that requires you to know who's backing them.
Right.
Which I don't know why that's not, like, why we as a public have not demanded that, just outright.
You mean financially?
Yeah. Who's backing these people? Who pays for their campaigns? That should be an open ledger. I don't know why it isn't.
One of the many things that we don't have access to as a public.
Because we don't bother, and this is the second lie. The second lie is that we believe that whole system is so much bigger than us, that it's out of our control, and that throw up our hands. The only semblance of power that we have over it is to to pick one of the bad choices they give us.
Yeah.
That's the second lie. And the way I would push back on that is, if I'm handed with two bad choices, I think the onus is on us to provide a better choice. There's always an option C. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just
getting everyone. It's just getting everyone in line with that option C.
Right. That's an arduous task at this point.
Oh,
because the machine is effective.
It's not impossible, like I've stated earlier, but it's close. Whatever 2 notches above under impossible is. That's how it feels, at least.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying, but it is a very challenging task to take on, because not only do you have to find that candidate, which is I think, at the easiest part, but then you have to kind of get them airtime in not only just alternative media, but you have to get them on debate stage so that they can actually talk to people who are also the 2 bad choices, essentially. And you have to get people behind them with that. And that's how you do it. You spread the information out. You got your alternative media, which is, I think it's the most powerful it's ever been.
I was about to throw an olive branch, but go ahead.
Well, thanks to the internet,
Yeah.
Which is becoming less and less freed to every day. But
Right.
Another
fight we need to have.
The idea, the idea is still strong, and you can still people can go viral.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen now and and again, with important things and not so important things, but it can happen. But
yeah. And to throw an olive branch out there, I know that for those who are, I suppose, of the older crowd, that lie has only now become truly a lie. The lie of, like, you can't be involved in the system, you can't really affect it without doing what the system gives you, like choosing one of the options the system gives you. That has usually been true because the gateway to entry into any of these arenas has been so high.
Yeah.
But now it's not.
It's not as high. That's
right?
True.
It's not as high.
That's
I mean,
true.
like, even though, and I may get flack for this, even though I generally disagree with usually most of the things that she says, AOC is a prime example. AOC was a waitress before she got her seat.
Right.
She was nobody. She was absolutely nobody.
But she worked and she got it.
And she found a way. She found
a way.
And I mean, you have people like Andrew Yang who managed to get up in the primaries. Not that he was particularly effective there, but he at least got on the stage.
No, he has started a conversation.
Right.
He got people behind him.
He got on the stage.
I mean, we're seeing
primarily because he sat in a room with Joe Rogan for a few hours.
Right.
Like, really. That's really
I think
how
that's
it happened.
probably also Tulsi Gabbard got a little bump from that,
Yeah.
too. And then the primaries just happen in many states for Democrats and Republicans. And several Democrats and Republicans who are more considered established in their roles have been knocked out of their primaries.
Yes.
By people who are kind of on the same wave as AOC. I don't remember. I think it's in Tennessee, but I don't remember exactly where this woman is. But she actually. I'm not gonna say it accurately. I don't know where she's from, but basically, I believe she's a single mother, a nurse. She's from the community. She was an activist. She basically became an activist after a certain police brutality incident happened a number of years ago, and I'm blanking on which one it was, unfortunately. But she just knocked out someone who was in the Congressional Black Caucus and was an established figure in that caucus.
Wow.
And she was like, "Look, I don't care what color you are. If you're not doing the work of the people of your community,
doesn't matter.
We're gonna take care of that, and we're gonna get you out." And that's exactly what they did.
Yes.
And I praise her, and she, I might not agree with her in what, like, her platform or anything, but value what she did.
This direction of thinking is what I want to encourage.
Right.
That's what I'm about.
I wish I knew her name.
Do you want me to
give her a
pull it up?
shout out? Nah, No. I want to say it was Cori Bush. I think that's her name. I hope I didn't mispronounce it. I know her last name is Bush because I remember she said, "I'm the good Bush."
There's so many ways you could take that. Anyway.
I mean, politically.
I know how she meant it. I'm just saying that's like a quadruple entendre over there.
We're peeking a little bit. Hey, you want to get closer to your mic?
Yeah, okay. What's up?
No, I'm just...
Yeah. So...
Yeah, okay, go. We're good. We were peeking a little bit. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, I apologize.
We don't have an engineer. That's me.
Yeah. What are you doing, Jamie?
We're not trying to be like that. Come on. Anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, like, to me, I think that to me, that's what it is. Is like, you have to look at what... It falls back into that line of, like, looking at what you're not being told. Right? Look at what they're not saying to you. Look at what they're not showing to you. Because
that's
the thing is
this
has been true the entire time.
Yeah.
We have always been able to get involved in this. We have always been able to upseat these established politicians, these established sources of power or positions of authority. We've always been able to do that. Like, has it been much more difficult in previous generations than it is now? Sure. But the thing is that they, like, it's very clear to me that especially when elections come around, the rhetoric, regardless of which side you're talking about, becomes very clear that it's presented in this us versus them kind of way, right?
Yes,
It's presented in like it's either us or them. It's
you
either
divide and conquer.
right.
That's what they're doing.
And nobody's talking about what actually should be getting done. They're talking about beating the other side.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
a
what we
game.
don't
And
need.
they're so open about it too.
Yeah.
These political figures
Because it
in
works,
Congress
though.
and Senate.
It works.
It works because
It
it's a team now, team mentality.
But also, like, it's psychology. Like, people's brains prefer binaries. It's true. Like, we prefer yes or no. That simple binary is how we prefer to categorize most information.
And not only that, I mean, most people they might be more in tune with it right now just because everyone's home and they're not dealing with like the day-to-day activities of life as much because of the pandemic. But before that pandemic started, most people had lives and they didn't really want to be bothered with the day-to-day news of politics per se. They just wanted like something, like you said, something simple. It's like, oh, I'm compassionate. I want what's best for people who are maybe not as privileged as me. Okay, the Democrats have my vote because that's the little package they offer. Do they actually do anything that it does stuff for the people who are underprivileged?
Very debatable.
Very debatable. Sure. We can talk about the effectiveness of that, but does it do anything? No. But the thing is, you think it does.
Right.
And so you're like, oh, of course I'm going to vote for that. I'm compassionate. Of course I'm going to vote for them. And the opposite may be true for like, yeah, I'm compassionate, but I believe in states' rights and I believe government should be small. And I'm going to vote Republican because that's what they say they do. Has the government any smaller since Trump took office?
No.
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 We're in way more debt. I keep peeking. I'm sorry. We're in way more debt than we were when he took office.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID too. So what they say they're about and what they actually do, two very different things. But
And see, the thing is like, I don't, to me, like the one thing that I haven't seen from any candidate, even for the most part, like with the exception of a few local candidates since I've been alive, but like especially on like major candidates, right? Anything congressional seat level and up. I have never heard someone truly like from some place that actually feels genuine. Instead of saying like, I'm about this issue or I'm about this issue or I'm about this issue. I'm about I'm about doing what is best for the most amount of people while harming the least amount of people. That's the best.
yeah, what party is that?
Right. Right.
There's
what
no
party is that?
There's no platform. The prescribed platforms of each party.
That's the best you could hope for. That is the best any person could attempt to do.
You could choose that candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
But
They don't really talk like
nobody
that.
talks that way.
No.
That's not what the game is.
No.
And so we get locked
We get
into
played.
single issues.
Yep.
We get tricked into thinking that everything's a binary and that
Totally.
there are no other choices
Yeah.
when we can create our own choices.
I mean, that's kind of how the system was originally designed, so that we could
And it is
send
not
up the best of us.
And now that we have apparatuses, what's the new thing? Oh, the thing is, it's so big and it's so convoluted and everybody's so connected that it's impossible for you to do anything meaningful in that realm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's lie number 3. Says who? Like, says the people in power? Yeah, of course they would say that.
Yeah. They don't want you to look at it. They want to maintain that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It works for them. It works for them. So, yeah, they don't want you to fiddle
And I
with
feel I genuinely feel like, to tie it all back in, the way in which information was handed to us, the order in which it was handed to us when it was, I mean, I still think that it was leaked, so it wasn't intended to be handed to us
Sure.
right now, in regards to the George Floyd situation, is an example of how all of that plays out. You have people with diverging interests, with public health not being their interest, with actually helping people not being their interest, they're not trying to make things better by showing you these things in the way that they're showing them to you. Mm-hmm. That's my phone. Sorry, I'll put that down. But like, they don't have your best interest in mind.
No.
Like, to quote Michael Jackson, all I'm trying to say is that they don't really care about us. Like,
they killed him for it too.
I mean,
okay, that's my tinfoil hat.
That's your tinfoil hat? Okay. that was a takeout. I'm willing to hear evidence to that.
I don't have any evidence.
you just like to believe it.
I'm just saying he's dead, man, and that's what he said.
Yeah, no.
No, I hear you though. I hear you. It's a.
And so, like, the next time,
deeper.
like, here's the sad thing. Because of this, I am less likely to jump on board. I'm being honest.
I know.
I'm less likely the next
sad.
time a situation like this is presented
sad.
to me, I am less likely to jump on board and immediately say, that was wrong, and this is what I saw.
It's sad. It's sad.
I can't trust it.
I know.
I shouldn't have trusted it in the first place, to be fair, but I can't trust it.
Look at it with open mind. Look at it with an open mind. And a little bit too much bourbon.
It's simultaneously an open and skeptical mind. Like, you have to hold both.
Well, I don't remember if it was Socrates or Plato who said it, but question everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And
it's unfortunate that, you have to do it, but the thing is, we're all human and we have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't want to be susceptible to the lies and just be here, like, put on a train track and like, this is the track you go down.
Right.
You have no choice in the matter. You might think you do. The track's covered up.
Well, you definitely don't have choices in the matter if you don't look at where things are. Like, if you believe. Like, that's the illusion
Listen
of choice.
and believe.
Right. Listen. Oh, God.
Yeah, no, that's another conversation.
Listen and believe. Whew.
Look it up.
If there was ever a cultier phrase that was not attached to a religion.
Mm-hmm. It's a religion. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that's where I'm sitting with it right now. Like, that's how I feel about the entire situation. It's kind of spiraled into like these broader concepts for me, where I'm just like, yeah, this, and the fact that this is all happening during, like, and this is going to sound really crazy, tinfoil hat. I know how it sounds. The fact that this is all happening during an election year at once seems weird to me now. It
is a little questionable.
Right.
I've thought that. I'm like, really? Right now? Literally the year leading up to presidential election.
Right.
All these things. It is interesting. We don't know. We don't have any proof, but it is interesting to think about.
Yeah. And, what else? Now I'm of the mindset of, like, what else are they not telling us? What else am I not being shown?
Well, I will tell you what they are saying.
Go ahead.
They've admitted that they have, and this is a completely different topic, they've admitted that they have spacecraft not of this earth. Or I say, craft not of this world or something. That was the quote from the Pentagon or someone.
Yeah. Why are they doing that now?
They've admitted, like, they won't admit that stuff that you're talking about,
right,
but they'll admit they've got alien technology.
Okay.
Allegedly.
What aren't they telling us about that?
I think they're just prepping us.
Is that what this is? Is to make this the worst year possible?
Let's sprinkle a little doom and gloom on the public of the world. And
what if that's what it is? You just destabilize things to the point to where people are so desperate that they will accept alien overlords?
Yeah.
Is that what they...
Hey, it's like, oh, that's your third candidate right there.
Yeah. Oh, crap. They created an option C. Damn it.
Yeah, they heard the podcast. They wanted to give you an option C just for you.
Shit.
The thing is, I don't think you can vote for that one.
Yeah, I actually object to that.
Take over.
I object to that wholeheartedly.
I don't think they're going to use the democracy system that
I don't think a being not from this earth could properly represent me.
Ooh. What would that be? Speciesist?
Sure.
Yeah,
I will accept it.
You're
it's
canceled.
the same reason I won't vote in a dog.
Your blue check is gone. Twitter has locked your account and has hacked your account.
Yeah, sure.
And you are now getting Bitcoin donations for someone else. And you don't exist. You have been unpersoned.
Great. I've been unpersoned.
Because you will not accept the
alien
overlords.
The alien overlords represent me because I'm no longer a person. But yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But yeah, no, it's...
There we are. That's it.
I mean, do you have anything? Like, because
no, I don't. I think that was really, because we started with something very heavy and ended it with it too. But I think it was a really good round discussion that was bigger than just the event itself. And I'm very it was a very interesting conversation. I wasn't sure where it was going to go.
Neither was I, really.
Yeah, because we really just wanted to talk about like how this new footage brought to light some things that were questionable now, and where that leads, which was great. So I sincerely hope that we do get justice for George Floyd.
Yes.
And his wrongful death, whether it was intentional murder or not, I don't know, but justice needs to be served. And not only that, things need to change in that regard. And, the reason why I want to talk about it is because we want to be open and honest about any evidence that comes to light. We talked at great length about the police and brutality and the movements on the first episode we did. And so this is kind of an addendum to that, adding a little bit more conversation to it in the wake of this new evidence that we have. So I think we've talked about it to a degree that, has given them our perspective, your perspective, my pushback on your perspective, and then inevitably my perspective too. So I think that's a good spot. We don't know what we're going to do for our next episodes. We sprinkle in a little bit of like current events. We have talked about what we want to do for future episodes. We're still not opening up the idea or opening up the room to guests yet. Just because of, we don't know pandemic wise where we are until we find a space that's safe.
Yes.
Which we don't have yet, but we're looking into it.
But yeah, we're looking into it.
I
am still talking to people to set this up though. Yeah.
If we can get more people interested, because I know we have a few people in mind that are interested in having specific discussions with us, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's just going to be this thing. We're going to try to do it on a every 2 weeks basis. So that's what we're aiming for.
Yes. We're going to try to stick to that.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
We got 2.
Yeah.
This will be the 3rd one, and we're on schedule. Should be coming out. I don't have a date, so I won't say it. It came out today.
Yep.
Or the day it came out.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that made a whole lot of sense.
But yeah, I'm very satisfied with where this ended.
So for those of you who have been giving us comments about having a shorter episode, I think
it's not that much shorter. It's it's a little shorter than the first episode.
Yeah, but I mean, last words on the subject? Anything you want to end with?
I think I said them already. Yeah, I just want justice for George Floyd. Yeah. I want justice in general. And I really want to continue the discussion, a realistic discussion about the police force and how we can make it better.
What their role is, what we want them to
understanding
do.
What their role is, understanding, hey, what other services could we add? I'm open to having that discussion about other services, resource officers, all that stuff. Not like in schools, but like actual people who can handle like
specific scenarios.
Scenarios that, exactly. That the regular police that maybe aren't trained well enough to understand and how to handle, but also making sure that the regular police are better trained and can and not only better trained initially, but like consistent training. I think it's just an obvious thing. Like you're not going to get good quality people if you're not training them.
I would throw in their routine mental health services for the police themselves.
Oh, that's just too much. It's too much money. No, we can't do that.
Oh, okay.
Any last words for you on this subject?
I would say in general, I mean, and this is kind of a general statement for almost everything, but like, I would say stay skeptical. Like, everyone has a reason for why they're telling you what they're telling you. And it's not always good. It's not always a good reason.
Right. Stay skeptical.
Yeah.
I see a t-shirt.
I'm with it. But anyway.
If anybody's interested in merch, fuck that.
Also, what am I not saying?
Maybe later. What am I not saying? Hi, nice to meet you. What am I not saying? Or what are you not saying?
Yeah, right.
All right. Anyway, let's end that right there.
All right.
Thank you again for listening to the Man Bites Dogma podcast. We really appreciate the support, and I'd love to see you in the conversation sometime.
Yeah. See you later, guys.
Bye.